A neighbor once called 911 because someone breathed too loudly through the wall. Another demanded a tow truck because a car was parked 2 inches over the line. And someone even complained that the moon was shining brighter on their neighbor's side. Yes, the actual moon. Welcome to 56 most ridiculous neighbor complaints ever, where logic is optional and pettiness is a full-time sport. Smash like if you've ever had that neighbor, comment if your street has drama, and subscribe so you never miss the next ridiculous complaint. 1. A woman in a small suburban neighborhood reacted strongly when a kid from next door accidentally kicked a ball that rolled onto her neatly trimmed grass. She stepped outside with exaggerated caution and studied the ball like it carried a hidden threat. The kid waited politely, yet she refused to return it, and instead lifted her phone to report what she described as a serious property incident. The dispatcher struggled to understand why she sounded so urgent when the situation was peaceful. Other neighbors peeked through windows trying not to laugh at how far she took a harmless moment. The scene ended only after the kid retrieved another ball and left her dramatic performance behind for the entire neighborhood watching. 2. A man walked outside hoping to relax after work when the warm smell of his neighbor's barbecue drifted across the yard. Instead of enjoying the pleasant scent, he stiffened as if someone had personally challenged his evening peace. He waved a folded paper in front of his face, trying to push the air away, while pacing with dramatic frustration. He approached the fence and complained that the aroma ruined his important focus time, even though he had no real task planned. His neighbors kept grilling with friendly smiles because they had done nothing wrong. Later, he wrote an official complaint that everyone quietly ignored. The entire situation made the neighborhood laugh because his reaction became more memorable than the barbecue. 3. A neighbor walking along the sidewalk stopped suddenly when he spotted a tiny piece of dog poop resting near the curb. Instead of handling it calmly, he reacted as if he had discovered a dangerous situation that required full emergency protocol. He rushed back inside and returned wearing protective gloves along with a large plastic shield that made him look prepared for a major operation. He blocked the walkway and warned people to step away from the tiny mess as though it carried mysterious power. Instead of dealing with it, he called local services and delivered a dramatic report that confused the worker on the phone. Those nearby tried not to laugh as his panic turned simple cleanup into chaos. 4. A neighbor noticed a car parked 2 inches over a painted line in the shared lot and acted like a major violation had taken place. He grabbed a tape measure and held it in front of the vehicle with exaggerated seriousness while shaking his head in disbelief. Instead of speaking calmly, he announced that the car needed to be towed immediately because rules mattered more than anything else. Other neighbors stepped outside to see what the noise was about and stared in confusion when they realized the issue was barely visible. He took photos from several angles as if preparing evidence for a courtroom battle. The driver returned amused by the spectacle and moved the car without effort. 5. A woman who valued silence above all else became unexpectedly furious when she heard gentle wind chimes ringing from her neighbor's porch. Instead of enjoying the peaceful sound, she marched outside with dramatic determination, as if she needed to confront a serious disturbance. She glared at the harmless decoration, then declared that the relaxing tones disrupted her inner balance. She attempted to reach over the fence with a broom, but failed to silence anything. Later, she contacted the housing office demanding new rules against pleasant sounds, which made no sense to anyone. Neighbors exchanged amused glances as her frustration grew. In the end, the chimes continued to sway peacefully while she remained the only person disturbed by them. 6. A neighbor who believed every holiday should follow a strict timetable became upset when someone on the street put up bright lights in early November. He stormed outside holding a large paper calendar and pointed at the date with intense frustration while insisting the decorations were inappropriate. The family next door smiled politely and continued their work because no rule restricted holiday enthusiasm. He circled the house looking for reasons to justify his anger and even threatened to report the lights as a community disruption. Other residents watched the scene with amusement while enjoying the cheerful glow. His attempt to enforce an unofficial schedule failed completely, leaving him angry and everyone else entertained. 7. A man standing in his backyard stared at the sky one evening and noticed that the moonlight seemed to shine slightly brighter on his neighbor's lawn than on his own. Instead of accepting the natural scene, he reacted as though an unfair advantage had been granted. He paced around the yard, analyzing the shadows and muttering about balance and justice. Eventually, he grabbed wooden boards and began building a strange wall to block the moonlight from crossing into the other property. His neighbor stepped outside confused by the sudden construction and tried to explain that the moon follows no rules of distribution. The man refused to listen and continued working while everyone else wondered how the situation became so dramatic. 8. A woman in a townhouse complex claimed she could hear her neighbor breathing through the wall and insisted that the sound was unacceptable even though the building was quiet. She placed her ear against the surface and described every small noise with theatrical seriousness as if decoding a secret message. Instead of discussing the issue politely, she contacted the management office and delivered a detailed report about what she called excessive breathing activity. Staff members struggled not to laugh because the walls were thick and no one else reported anything. She continued pacing the hallway, searching for proof and pointing at the wall like a detective. Her exaggerated concern quickly became the most amusing story on the block. 9. A neighbor standing by their window noticed someone across the street give a simple friendly wave. Most people would smile back. Yet this person rushed to hide behind the curtains while insisting that the gesture was an act of harassment. They paced inside their living room and rehearsed explanations for authorities as if preparing for a major account of wrongdoing. They even filmed the street hoping to catch another wave that would help them prove intentional intimidation. When nothing else happened, they still filed a report stating that the friendly neighbor displayed suspicious social behavior. Other residents found the claim unbelievable and continued greeting each other normally, while the complaining neighbor remained convinced something serious had occurred. 10. A neighbor obsessed with lawn care noticed that the household next door had greener grass and decided something dishonest must be happening. He crouched near the property edge, examining every blade with dramatic focus while insisting that the vibrant color indicated water theft. He carried a small notebook and took notes as though building a scientific theory that would expose wrongdoing. Instead of asking politely, he accused the family of stealing natural resources and demanded a full investigation. They laughed softly because their secret was simply consistent watering and routine mowing. He continued searching for hidden hoses and mysterious devices, and became the subject of neighborhood jokes because his theory never held any truth. 11. A neighbor resting on their porch became upset when they heard a child laughing in the yard next door, even though it was only mid-afternoon. Instead of appreciating the playful sound, they grabbed a small noise meter and marched around their driveway as if investigating a major disturbance. They pointed the device in different directions while shaking their head and muttering about daily peace. The child continued playing, totally unaware of the dramatic reaction happening nearby. Later, the neighbor filed a complaint claiming the laughter disrupted the entire block, which confused everyone since most residents never noticed anything unusual. The situation became local humor because no one understood how joyful noise could create such unnecessary drama. 12. A neighbor who believed rules were sacred began patrolling the street on recycling day with the determination of a strict officer. They noticed someone place their bins out a day early and reacted as if a major violation had taken place. They marched toward the bins with a serious expression while taking photos for evidence and rehearsing a long report in their mind. Instead of speaking politely, they went straight to the community office and demanded a $500 fine for what they described as a threat to neighborhood order. The staff listened patiently, yet clearly saw no problem. The entire incident became a lighthearted story shared by amused residents who appreciated how minor mistakes can spark dramatic reactions. 13. A neighbor walking past a yard noticed a cat sitting calmly on a fence with a relaxed stare. Most people would simply admire the quiet moment, yet this person froze and insisted the cat was showing hostile intent. They backed away slowly while claiming the animal watched them for 5 seconds in a threatening manner. Instead of ignoring the harmless pet, they called animal services and described the situation as urgent, which confused the worker who answered. The cat remained perfectly still and uninterested in the dramatic claims. Other neighbors witnessed the scene and struggled not to laugh at how far the complaint had been taken. The harmless cat simply stretched and continued relaxing on the sunny fence. 14. A neighbor sitting in their yard noticed a shadow crossing the property line as the sun moved across the sky. Instead of recognizing this as a natural event, they reacted with exaggerated seriousness and insisted the shadow represented a territorial breach. They grabbed a piece of chalk and drew a long line on the ground while explaining the importance of boundaries to anyone who walked by. They even attempted to take pictures of the shifting light as evidence. The neighbor whose body created the shadow tried to explain the concept of sunlight, yet the complainer refused to listen. The situation eventually became a neighborhood joke because the idea of enforcing control over moving shadows made no sense to anyone. 15. A neighbor walking their dog offered a simple friendly smile to another resident across the street. Instead of returning the gesture, the person clutched their dog tightly and claimed the smile indicated an attempt to lure the animal away. They hurried inside while repeating wild theories about secret pet theft. Later, they contacted authorities and delivered a long, detailed statement filled with dramatic claims that surprised the officer, who listened patiently. The neighbor, who originally smiled, had no idea any of this happened until others on the street began discussing the strange accusation. Over time, the story became a neighborhood favorite, because the idea that a simple smile could spark such fear felt unbelievable and strangely memorable. 16. A neighbor sitting in their living room noticed a Wi-Fi network name pop up on their phone that read, FBI van. Instead of recognizing it as a common joke, they panicked and believed a major investigation had arrived on their street. They rushed from window to window, searching for suspicious vehicles, and spoke in a hushed tone as if avoiding surveillance. Instead of asking nearby residents, they reported the matter to higher authorities, claiming danger existed in the neighborhood. Officers arrived and quickly realized the network name belonged to a teenager who enjoyed silly pranks. The embarrassed neighbor refused to accept the explanation at first, which made the situation an entertaining story repeated for weeks by amused residents. 17. A neighbor trying to sleep in on a Saturday morning became furious when they heard a lawnmower start at 10 o'clock, which is a normal time in most communities. They rushed outside wearing pajamas and stared at the mowing neighbor with dramatic disbelief, as if witnessing a serious violation of peace. They waved their arms and shouted about personal rest schedules that no one else followed. The mower continued running because the person cutting grass had done nothing wrong. Later, the upset neighbor tried to file a noise complaint, yet authorities explained that regular daytime yard work was acceptable. Their angry reaction quickly became a humorous story that spread across the block because it felt overly dramatic. 18. A neighbor who disliked natural smells became upset when the family next door opened their compost bin during afternoon chores. Instead of accepting the mild odor, they marched into their yard wearing a gas mask and declared the scent a threat to neighborhood health. They pointed at the compost pile with dramatic concern while insisting strict action was necessary. The family explained calmly that composting was normal, yet the complainer refused to listen. They later attempted to involve the community board, claiming environmental danger, even though no one else reported any issue. The event became a running joke among residents because the neighbor's theatrical costume and dramatic warnings turned a simple household task into unexpected entertainment. 19. A neighbor gazing at the sky noticed several birthday balloons drifting gently from a party next door. Instead of enjoying the cheerful sight, they reacted as if their personal airspace had been violated. They rushed outside carrying binoculars and shouted instructions about aerial control, as though managing a restricted zone. They even attempted to track the balloons with intense focus while documenting the movement for a report. Their complaint to local services described the event as an unauthorized airborne breach, which confused the person receiving the call. The rest of the neighborhood found the situation both amusing and surprising, because the balloons caused no harm. The dramatic response remained a memorable moment for everyone who witnessed it unfold. 20. A neighbor sitting inside their home heard laughter coming from the house next door, where a family was watching a funny television show. Instead of appreciating the joyful atmosphere, they grew irritated and held their hands over their ears like someone enduring a loud disaster. They paced around their living room, repeating that humor should be controlled during quiet hours, even though it was still early evening. They contacted building management and claimed the sound of laughter created emotional disturbance for the entire block. Other residents reported hearing nothing unusual, which made the complaint even stranger. The frustrated neighbor eventually became known for reacting dramatically to harmless fun, and their story spread as lighthearted entertainment among locals. 21. A neighbor walked outside and noticed a row of bright flowers planted along the fence by the family next door. Instead of appreciating the cheerful colors, they reacted as though their personal view had been stolen forever. They paced along the fence, claiming the flowers blocked their view, even though nothing important stood on the other side. They lifted a small garden tool and made dramatic gestures about reclaiming visibility, which confused people watching from nearby porches. The family explained calmly that the flowers were harmless, yet the complainer insisted nature was interfering with their daily peace. Over time, the entire neighborhood laughed about the exaggerated reaction, because the view had never held anything worth protecting in the first place. 22. A neighbor jogging each morning followed the same route for exercise. Yet another resident began timing the routine with intense suspicion. They stood on their driveway holding a small radar gun as if measuring speed during an important event. They claimed the jogger passed by too consistently and insisted this pattern meant hidden intentions. The jogger simply waved politely, unaware of the drama unfolding across the street. Later, the suspicious neighbor contacted local authorities reporting potential stalking, even though the pattern existed only in their imagination. Officers arrived and quickly realized the accusation lacked any real basis. The story spread across the block as one of the most unusual misunderstandings because regular exercise rarely sparks such dramatic conclusions. 23. A neighbor polishing their dull mailbox noticed that the mailbox across the street shined brightly in the sun. Instead of accepting the difference, they reacted as though an unfair competition had begun. They scrubbed their own mailbox with exaggerated determination, hoping to match the shine, yet nothing seemed good enough. Eventually, they marched to the community office claiming the other mailbox created visual imbalance and demanded an inspection. Staff members listened politely yet found the complaint completely unnecessary. Other neighbors stood nearby trying not to laugh because mailboxes rarely inspire dramatic rivalry. The shiny mailbox remained untouched, while the complainer continued polishing with rising frustration. The entire event became a favorite neighborhood story shared with lighthearted amusement. 24. A neighbor sneezed loudly one afternoon, and another resident standing nearby responded with a simple, polite "bless you." Instead of appreciating the kindness, the person froze and claimed their privacy had been invaded because someone reacted to a natural sound. They insisted the phrase revealed too much personal attention and filed a detailed complaint describing emotional discomfort. Authorities listened but struggled not to show confusion because the interaction seemed perfectly normal. The person who offered the polite phrase later learned about the complaint and felt surprised by the extreme interpretation. Other residents found the situation amusing and continued using the polite phrase without concern. The incident became legendary because it turned common courtesy into unnecessary drama. 25. A neighbor glanced at a decorative windmill spinning cheerfully in a nearby yard and reacted with surprising frustration. Instead of enjoying the harmless movement, they marched toward the fence and shouted that the spinning looked too cheerful for the neighborhood atmosphere. They demanded the windmill be removed because its movement created an unrealistic sense of happiness. The family who owned the decoration listened politely, yet saw no reason for concern. Other neighbors watched the scene while smiling because the spinning decoration brought joy to many. The complainer insisted their mood was affected by the motion, which made the situation even funnier. Eventually, the windmill stayed in place while the dramatic reaction became another entertaining story in the area. 26. A neighbor who feared insects noticed several moths gathering near a porch light in the yard next door. Instead of recognizing this as a normal evening sight, they panicked and shouted that the light attracted dangerous swarms into their personal space. They ran outside, holding a large bug zapper like a protective shield, while warning everyone nearby about an insect invasion. The family with the porch light attempted to calm the situation by explaining that moths are harmless. However, the complainer refused to listen. They later attempted to document the moth activity as evidence for a formal complaint. Residents found the escalating fear humorous because the creatures simply fluttered peacefully around the glow, causing no true disturbance. 27. A neighbor hoping for an afternoon nap grew annoyed when the family next door began watering their plants. The gentle hissing sound of the sprinkler seemed normal, yet the complainer reacted with theatrical frustration and stormed onto their porch to glare at the peaceful activity. They shouted that the noise destroyed their rest time, even though the neighborhood remained quiet. The gardening family continued their routine because watering plants was part of their schedule. Later, the upset neighbor attempted to involve community management, claiming unacceptable sound levels. Representatives found nothing wrong and dismissed the report. The incident became a lighthearted neighborhood memory because the sprinkler sound barely reached anyone, and the dramatic complaint felt exaggerated. 28. A neighbor noticed a patriotic flag waving proudly outside a nearby home and instantly declared it offensive, even though many houses displayed similar decorations. They marched across the lawn and demanded the flag be removed because it represented excessive enthusiasm. The family proudly flying the flag refused and explained their right to display it. Yet the complainer continued arguing with rising frustration. They attempted to gather support for a protest, but no one agreed with their unusual objection. Their dramatic mission quickly became the topic of humorous conversation among residents. The flag continued waving peacefully, while the complainer eventually stopped arguing. The event remained a memorable reminder that personal preferences should not ignite unnecessary conflict within a community. 29. A neighbor relaxing on their porch smelled the aroma of fresh pizza being delivered next door. Instead of appreciating the pleasant scent, they reacted dramatically as if they were being tortured. They fanned the air vigorously while shouting about unfair temptation. The family receiving the pizza laughed softly because the reaction seemed wildly exaggerated. The upset neighbor dialed emergency services and claimed the smell caused emotional distress, which confused the dispatcher. Soon the story spread throughout the neighborhood as people found humor in the idea that pizza aroma could be considered a serious issue. The family enjoyed their meal while the complainer kept pacing with frustration, making the situation even more amusing for everyone around. 30. A neighbor saw the family next door raking leaves into a tidy pile and instantly declared the activity a major fire hazard. Even though the weather was calm, they sprinted across the yard carrying a fire extinguisher while shouting warnings that startled everyone nearby. The family explained that they were simply cleaning their yard, yet the complainer refused to listen. They insisted the leaves posed extreme danger and demanded immediate removal. Other residents watched from porches trying not to laugh because leaf piles rarely caused the dramatic situation being described. Eventually, the complainer realized no threat existed and returned home still frustrated. The story became a humorous tale shared whenever fall arrived. 31. A neighbor awakened at 2 in the morning heard the baby next door crying and immediately assumed something disastrous was happening inside that home. Instead of understanding that infants often wake up during the night, they rushed onto their porch wearing mismatched slippers while declaring the situation an emergency loud enough to wake others. They attempted to call authorities claiming the sound signaled neglect, even though the parents were already soothing the child. Residents later laughed about the dramatic misunderstanding because the noise lasted less than a minute and caused no real disturbance, yet produced an unforgettable overreaction for everyone. 32. A man living across the street noticed sunlight reflecting sharply from his neighbor's new solar panels and reacted as if a laser beam were attacking his home. He hurried outside wearing oversized sunglasses and held a cardboard shield above his head while shouting about dangerous reflections traveling directly into his living room. He insisted the glare was intentional even though the panels simply faced the sun. He attempted to take photos but kept blinding himself in the process. Other neighbors chuckled at the escalating theatrics because the light barely reached his yard, yet inspired a campaign demanding anti-glare regulations today. 33. A woman walking past her neighbor's porch noticed a small book club gathering quietly with tea and conversation, yet treated the peaceful scene like a suspicious secret meeting. She marched to the porch carrying a portable speaker, blasting loud music to disrupt what she called intellectual intimidation. She accused the readers of plotting community domination through novels, even though they discussed simple fiction. She attempted to record the event for evidence but dropped her phone twice. Residents later joked about the dramatic assumptions because the group barely whispered and posed no threat, while the woman continued warning others about literature. 34. A man noticed his neighbor's snowman proudly displaying a carrot nose and immediately argued that using food for decoration represented unacceptable waste. He stomped across the yard, demanding the vegetable be returned so it could be used properly for dinner. Even though it already served as harmless winter decor, He lectured the family about responsible produce management while waving a grocery receipt as supposed proof. He later attempted to organize a community meeting about vegetable misuse, but nobody attended. Residents found the situation hilarious because the snowman melted before his complaint reached anyone. Leaving the man still upset about carrot. 35. A neighbor watching the house next door noticed a group of teenagers practicing a silent garage band routine using only exaggerated motions without producing any real sound. Confused and suspicious, they believed the performance signaled some hidden underground operation. They grabbed binoculars and took frantic notes while pacing their driveway. They attempted to confront the teens but misinterpreted every gesture as coded communication. They finally reported the silent session to community management, who struggled not to laugh. Residents later joked about the dramatic misunderstanding because the teens simply mimed instruments for fun and created no disturbance yet triggered an investigation. 36. A woman noticed her neighbors adding banana peels to their compost bin and immediately assumed they were creating a breeding ground for dangerous fruit flies that would overrun the entire block. She stepped outside in a full beekeeper suit while waving a clipboard and documenting every peel toss as if it were evidence of biological warfare. She warned passing walkers about airborne threats, even though the bin barely produced a smell. She attempted to present her findings to community leaders who struggled not to laugh. Residents later recalled the event as a memorable example of extreme overreaction about compost today. 37. A man became furious when his neighbors decorated their yard for Halloween on the first day of September, insisting the spooky items arrived far too early for the calendar. He marched across the lawn carrying a plastic cross and demanded the skeletons be detained until an approved date. The family laughed politely while explaining they enjoyed decorating early, but he responded with dramatic warnings about psychological chaos. Later, he attempted to collect signatures for an anti-premature decoration petition, but received none. Residents remembered the incident as a humorous reminder that personal celebration timing rarely requires community intervention for anyone in town. 38. A woman noticed her neighbor's electric vehicle charging quietly at night and immediately believed electricity was being stolen from the entire community. She tiptoed across her driveway carrying a flashlight and inspected the charging cable as if uncovering a secret heist. She claimed the soft humming sound indicated unauthorized power flow, even though the car simply charged normally. She attempted to unplug the cable but stumbled over her slippers and retreated quickly. Later, she submitted a long written complaint filled with graphs. She drew herself. Residents later chuckled about the situation because the harmless charging session caused no real issue. 39. A neighbor, mowing his lawn on a sunny afternoon, smiled cheerfully while working, and a man across the street interpreted the expression as smug provocation. He glared intensely while gripping his rake like a defensive weapon and muttering about unacceptable yard optimism. Determined to restore emotional balance, he practiced neutral facial expressions in his window before marching outside to confront the smiling neighbor. The mower operator simply waved politely, causing the man to interpret the gesture as further taunting. The moment later became a neighborhood joke because the conflict revolved entirely around an innocent smile during routine yard work. 40. A woman became alarmed when she noticed numerous birds gathering around a feeder in her neighbor's yard and insisted the situation represented an organized avian invasion. She constructed a makeshift scarecrow army across her driveway and shouted warnings to joggers passing by. She claimed territorial takeover was imminent, even though the birds peacefully enjoyed seeds. She attempted to file a wildlife emergency report, but struggled to explain the danger. Later, she held a meeting in her garage displaying hand-drawn maps of alleged bird formations. Residents fondly remembered the incident because the birds left quietly, leaving only laughter for today. 41. A man noticed his neighbor's fence stood 1 inch taller than his own and immediately declared it an act of height discrimination. He grabbed a ladder and a tape measure, then shouted measurements across the yard as if announcing breaking news. He insisted the extra inch created an unfair advantage in privacy levels and demanded the fence be shortened immediately. He attempted to file a property inequality report, even though nothing violated any rules. Other residents chuckled as he paced with a notebook full of angry sketches. The fence remained untouched, while the dramatic disagreement became a neighborhood story. 42. A woman saw her neighbor wave with their left hand instead of their right, and instantly believed it represented a coded political message directed at her. She hurried inside, grabbed a notebook, and returned outside to document the angle, speed, and height of the wave as if decoding a secret language. She approached the neighbor demanding an explanation, but received only a confused smile. Determined to uncover meaning, she interviewed others about hand gestures and drafted a long report. Residents laughed softly afterward because the wave was simply friendly, yet became an unexpected mystery for her imagination that day. 43. A man witnessed his neighbor practicing yoga on their porch and became convinced the stretching represented public displays of unnecessary flexibility. He shouted from his driveway, warning that such movements could intimidate less flexible residents. He attempted to recreate the poses but fell instantly and blamed the distraction on spiritual imbalance. Later, he brought a folding chair to observe sessions as if conducting scientific research. The yoga practitioner offered to teach him, but he refused, claiming porch stretching required a permit. Residents loved retelling the story because the peaceful exercise created no issue, yet produced dramatic commentary from across the street. 44. A neighbor walking down the street noticed a trash bin lid slightly opened by just 2 millimeters outside a nearby home and reacted as if witnessing a major health code violation. They marched to the bin with a ruler and documented the exact gap like conducting official inspection duties. They later submitted a report demanding strict lid closure rules for all households. The family who owned the bin explained they simply forgot to press it down fully, yet the neighbor insisted danger lurked inside. Community leaders dismissed the claim, while others found humor in the overly precise concern shared that afternoon. 45. A man noticed his neighbors celebrating a birthday quietly with soft music and cake, yet immediately felt suspicious about the unusually calm atmosphere. He peeked over the fence, claiming the silence indicated secretive behavior. He attempted to join the celebration uninvited while asking probing questions about the lack of noise. The family explained they preferred a peaceful evening, but he insisted loud parties were the only trustworthy kind. Later, he filed a statement about unsettling cheerfulness, confusing everyone. Residents laughed about the incident afterward because the harmless celebration somehow became a dramatic mystery for the man across the yard. 46. A woman discovered her neighbors collecting rainwater in a barrel and instantly accused them of stealing rainfall that rightfully belonged to everyone. She marched into the yard holding an umbrella as symbolic evidence and demanded they redistribute the collected water evenly. She even attempted to track cloud movement with her phone to support her claim. The family explained the barrel helped their garden, but she insisted weather resources must remain community property. Other neighbors chuckled while watching the debate about rain ownership unfold. Eventually, the clouds moved on, leaving her argument behind as a humorous chapter in neighborhood memory. 47. A man became convinced his neighbor's smart doorbell recorded his yawn one morning and believed he had been placed under full surveillance. He reenacted the yawn several times, trying to determine the exact angle captured by the tiny camera. He later approached the neighbor demanding immediate deletion of the alleged footage, even though the doorbell only recorded motion. He attempted to cover his driveway with makeshift privacy shields created from cardboard boxes. Residents laughed gently about the situation because the simple device caused unexpected paranoia, and the man spent the afternoon guarding his yawns as if they were top secret. 48. A woman gardening noticed her neighbor planting tomatoes and immediately declared the act part of a nightshade conspiracy. She insisted tomatoes released mysterious energies capable of influencing community behavior. She circled the garden, taking photos while wearing a tinfoil hat she crafted for protection. She later attempted to warn others by distributing small flyers labeled vegetable awareness. However, most found the message confusing. The neighbor, growing tomatoes, chuckled politely and continued watering the plants. Residents loved retelling the moment because the tomatoes simply grew normally while the woman treated them as suspicious agents infiltrating the neighborhood. 49. A man glancing at his neighbor's window saw a playful shadow puppet show at dusk and immediately believed something supernatural was happening. He ran to his yard, holding a flashlight like a protective weapon while shouting about ghostly appearances behind the glass. The family inside laughed and revealed they were simply entertaining their kids with hand shadows. Still unconvinced, he attempted to call a paranormal investigator who quickly declined. Later, he mapped supposed ghost movements in his notebook. The event became a favorite story among neighbors because innocent shadows transformed into a dramatic haunting in the man's imagination. 50. A woman walking her dog noticed chalk drawings created by a child on the sidewalk near a neighbor's driveway and reacted as if she had discovered a graffiti crime scene. She pointed at the colorful hopscotch squares and rainbows while demanding immediate cleanup to protect neighborhood standards. The family explained the art washed away naturally, but she insisted the chalk represented permanent vandalism. She attempted to scrub the drawings herself, yet created more smudges that looked funnier than the originals. Other residents found the situation amusing because the cheerful artwork brought smiles to everyone except the dramatically concerned woman. 51. A man noticed his neighbors adding coffee grounds to their compost and immediately insisted the mixture caused dangerous caffeine runoff that could energize the entire block unnaturally. He marched across his driveway carrying test strips he printed from the internet while demanding immediate soil analysis. The family explained the grounds simply enriched the compost, but he claimed hyperactive worms would soon overtake gardens. He attempted to present his findings at a community meeting, yet spilled his coffee across the floor, ironically. Residents later laughed because the harmless compost created no threat, while his dramatic theories brewed even stronger than the ground's. 52. A woman saw her neighbor's windsock pointing east and became convinced the fabric intentionally spread incorrect weather information across the community. She ran outside with a large compass and shouted that the windsock manipulated nature. She attempted to twist it into a different direction, but it flopped back instantly. Determined to expose the truth she created, detailed charts showing supposed weather inconsistencies caused by the decoration. The neighbors simply explained it. Moved with the breeze, yet she insisted invisible forces controlled it. Residents found humor in the situation because the simple windsock unintentionally launched a full investigation into imaginary weather crimes. 53. A neighbor heard a gentle creaking sound from the porch, swing across the street and reacted as if enduring severe noise pollution. They stepped outside holding a can of oil and demanded the swing be silenced immediately. The family explained the creak was minor, yet the neighbor claimed it echoed through their home like thunder. They attempted to record the sound, but wind drowned most of it out. Later, they submitted a lengthy complaint suggesting swing curfews. Residents chuckled afterward because the peaceful creak barely reached anyone, and the dramatic reaction turned a harmless sound into a neighborhood spectacle remembered fondly. 54. A man received a plate of freshly baked cookies from the family next door, yet responded with immediate suspicion, believing the gesture signaled an attempted poisoning. He sniffed each cookie dramatically while wearing rubber gloves, then placed them inside sealed bags for testing. He even considered sending them to a laboratory, but settled for examining crumbs with a magnifying glass. The family kindly assured him the cookies were safe, but he insisted danger hid in every chocolate chip. Other neighbors laughed gently because the treats were delicious and harmless, while the man remained convinced he narrowly escaped a confectionery disaster. 55. A woman standing in her yard at night noticed moonlight illuminating her neighbor's lawn, and instantly accused the celestial glow of trespassing onto her property. She paced along her driveway, drawing chalk boundaries while shouting at the sky to redirect itself. She attempted to block the moon using a bedsheet tied between two poles, yet the light passed through effortlessly. Later, she contacted community leaders demanding nighttime light zoning regulations. Residents found the situation humorous because the moon simply shone as usual, while she treated it like a spotlight controlled by her neighbors. The quiet evening turned into memorable entertainment. 56. A man grew increasingly irritated simply because his neighbors existed next door and insisted their presence alone disrupted his peace. He complained about their footsteps, their conversations, and even the sound of their door opening. He attempted to build a privacy wall tall enough to block every sign of life, yet ran out of supplies halfway through. He later hosted a meeting requesting community guidelines for acceptable neighbor behavior, but nobody attended. The situation became the grand finale of neighborhood stories because his frustration targeted nothing specific, while daily life continued normally, leaving everyone amused by his exaggerated misery. And there you have it, the complete list of the 56 most ridiculous neighbor complaints ever recorded. each one proving that some folks will turn absolutely anything into a full-blown neighborhood drama. If you enjoyed watching these wild moments unfold and want more unbelievable stories just like this, make sure you hit that like button right now. Drop a comment telling me which complaint shocked you the most, because I read every single one. And if you love weird facts, dumb situations, and everyday absurdity, subscribe to Complainix so you never miss the next crazy episode.